Good morning. Let's sing together, shall we? We're going to sing out of the gray hymnal, hymn number 407. We're going to sit at the welcome table, and I invite you to rise in body and or spirit, and let's sit and sing together, shall we? If you're joining us online, you can find the lyrics posted in the chat. They'll also be projected up on the screen.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Olympia UU congregation. Our community envisions an interconnected world that is loving, just, and healthy. We commit to live out our mission to welcome and wonder, embrace and empower, bridge and become. Thank you for joining us today. You are welcome here, just as you are. Whatever belief sustains you, whomever you love, however you understand and express your identity, and in all the ways you are still becoming the person you will be. My name is Ann Radford, and I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a member of the worship arts team. Leading worship with me today is our minister, Reverend Mary Gear, Troy Fisher, our music director, and Sara Lewis, our director of community and faith development. Our speaker today is Reverend Manish Mishra-Marzetti. Reverend Mishra-Marzetti serves as the senior minister of the First Unitarian Congregation of Ann Arbor, Michigan. He is the co-editor of Seeds of a New Way, Nurturing Authentic and Diverse Religious Leadership, and the 2018-2019 UUA Common Read, Justice on Earth, People of Faith Working at the Intersections of Race, Class, and the Environment. He has served extensively in Unitarian Universalist leadership, including as co-chair of the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, the UUSC, the Board of Trustees of that group, and as a member of the UUA Board of Trustees. He brings to the ministry his multicultural experience serving as a U.S. diplomat during the Clinton administration. Reverend Mishra-Marzetti brings us today a recorded message as a representative of the Board of the Trustees of the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee. Now, here are a few things that you should know about our service today. We're streaming live on Zoom and YouTube, and the service is being recorded. For those here in the sanctuary, you can see the mostly accurate subtitles in front, and you can also see them on Zoom if you are online. Over here, we have fluffy chairs and activities for your hands, so everyone can be comfortable. We are a multi-generational community, and we value our young ones. Kids, babies, and teens are all welcome in the sanctuary, and there's childcare in the nursery and the story time in the classroom wing down the hall. We're grateful for the many hands that have helped worship happen this morning. Thank you to all who make this happen today. After the service, everyone will have the chance to discuss reflection questions offered by Reverend Mary. For those online, we invite you to go into a breakout room for a virtual coffee chat. For those in person here, please feel free to stay for coffee and fellowship in the Commons. At 11:30 after the coffee chat, please return to the main room or the sanctuary for time with the OUUC Board of Trustees. Interfaith Works annual celebration, Setting the Sacred Table event will be this afternoon at 1:30 at the First United Methodist Church on Legion Way. They will welcome and celebrate the Squaxin Island tribe and enjoy music from a variety of faith communities, as well as the Olympia Peace Singers and the Bridge Music Project. And we will be holding our annual Thanksgiving potluck gathering again this year at 2 o'clock Thanksgiving afternoon. All are welcome, and please find the Sign Up Genius link in the announcements, or you can RSVP to Reverend Sara. We also, of course, will need help setting up and cleaning up, so if you can help with that, please contact Reverend Sara. There's so many things happening here at OUUC. Check the Tuesday electronic update for the latest information or the website. Now, let us open our hearts and minds as we prepare for worship. It is good to be together. This morning and every Sunday morning, we join Unitarian Universalists around the world in lighting a chalice, the symbol of our faith tradition. If you are online and have a candle or a chalice, please join us here as we light our chalice together with these words by Reverend Michael Tino. The flaming chalice was first used by the Unitarian Service Committee as a symbol of life-saving refuge for people fleeing persecution in Europe. As we light this chalice, we invoke the love that called people to put their lives at risk to save others. May we be vessels of life-saving welcome.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Reverend Mary, and I use she, her pronouns. I am an older white woman. I wear glasses, and today I have on a black top and a Side with Love bright yellow stole. As we gather here this morning, may we know that Unitarians and Unitarian Universalists gather around the world. Last Sunday, we heard the powerful words of Reverend Zsolt Elikas, a Unitarian minister in Transylvania, Romania. He spoke so eloquently of our faith's history of resistance against oppression and living our values. We have ancestors to inspire us. Our roots go deep. Today, we hear from the Reverend Manish Mishra-Marzetti, a Unitarian Universalist minister in the United States, who will speak about the justice work done around the world by our Unitarian Universalist Service Committee. With our support, we have many who help do the work of living our values in partnership with those directly affected by injustice. Our reach is broad. In this time when we may feel an impulse to pull inward, let us remember that our roots are deep and our reach is wide. And more than anything, let us remember that we are not alone. Come, let us worship together.
And let's sing together again, hymn number 360. Here we have gathered. I invite you to rise in body and our spirit, and let's sing together.
Good morning. I have a story for you today that comes from our history. And it begins in the dark days and nights of World War II, when many people across Europe became refugees. Now, a refugee is someone who is seeking refuge, who is seeking safety and help. And the Unitarian Service Committee was formed in response to this need. They organized and worked to help refugees across Europe. But they had a problem. They were a new organization, and no one really knew who they were. And the people that they were trying to help spoke many different languages. Most of the members of the Unitarian Service Committee only spoke English, but the people that they were trying to help spoke Polish, German, Yiddish, Czech. So how could the Unitarian Service Committee convey the message that they were there to help? They needed something. And they realized that what they needed was a symbol that would convey help and safety and hope to people no matter what language they spoke. And so Dr. Charles Joy, who was the head of the Unitarian Service Committee, decided that they should hire an artist to create a symbol. And the artist that they hired was himself a refugee, Hans Deutsch. He had fled his home. He was in Portugal, where he also didn't speak the language of the people around him. And so he drew on the influences and the ideas of that experience of being a refugee, and he created this symbol, a cup with a flame with a circle around it. The flaming chalice, held in a circle that conveyed protection. And that symbol came to be used throughout the Unitarian Service Committee's work, not just during World War II, but onward. And eventually, that symbol came to represent Unitarian Universalism as a whole, and to be a common practice of lighting a chalice, that symbol that conveyed hope and safety, light, faith, and so much more to so many people. And so the symbol lives on, as does the work of the Unitarian Service Committee, now the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee. And they have another symbol, the guest at your table box, which has long been an annual fundraiser for the UUSC. And so today, in this season, we invite you to take one of these boxes home. You can find some in the Commons, and add this symbol next to your chalice or a candle. And remember these symbols of hope, of help, and of faith. Thus ends our story. Thank you.
Each Sunday, we engage in the spiritual practice of generosity and gratitude by joining together in service to our community and to something greater than ourselves. Each of us has the power to share, and when we combine our gifts to create an offering, together we are able to do more than any of us can do alone. We also express our gratitude for the gifts that life has given us, for the network of relationships in which we live, and for the presence of this community. If you are new and visiting us for the first or second time, you are our guest, and we do not expect you to contribute. However, if you are moved to be part of the offering, what you share will be most gratefully received. The offering here does two things. It helps support the ongoing work of this contribution, which is also supported by your regular pledges. And it also supports an organization that serves our community in harmony with our Unitarian Universalist values. For September and October, we shared our plate with All Kids Win, an organization that helps address hunger and food insecurity in our schools. We sent $3,256.20 to All Kids Win. Yeah. And added $465.17 to the minister's benevolent fund. Thank you so much. Our Share the Plate organization for November and December is CARE, which stands for Collaborative Association for Reintegration and Education. And this is what they share about their work.
Hello to the Olympia UU congregation. Thank you for inviting us for this year's Share the Plate. I'm Katie Strozik, Interim Executive Director.
And I'm Aranza Vasquez, our Program Director. We represent CARE Olympia, which stands for Collaborative Association for Reintegration and Education, serving youth and young adults that have been impacted by the criminal legal system and the systemic barriers that coincide with incarceration or detention.
CARE is centered around empowering our community, and we believe that housing is a human right. A significant amount of research has proven housing-first methods are not only the most equitable, but also that they're evidence-based in having folks maintain housing and achieve self-identified goals. Having a home, clean water to shower, access to food, and basic necessities, these are all things that we can often blindly cherish, while others lack access to such vital resources. Available data finds that almost half of the youth who have experienced homelessness have also been in a juvenile detention facility or jail at some point. In comparison, only 15% of the general population has been incarcerated or detained. We address this disproportionality by providing basic needs and listening to youth so that they can share their solutions.
Donations like yours help us obtain and sustain needs for the youth we serve, like community and belonging built through meals or a coffee with our peers during sessions. Other needs include down payments to secure housing or working cell phones to enable the ability of navigating resources, connecting with your peer counselor, applying for jobs, and being reachable for callbacks, appointments, and things alike. With proper funding, we're even able to provide a mattress to sleep on once our peers achieve housing. While these donations are imperative to run our programs to success, the most important part is an involved and active community like yours.
We're so appreciative of you taking the time to give attention to these empowering solutions, and you're all actively making a difference by seeking ways to get involved. Thank you for your part.
Taking an offering is never just a practical experience. It has always been a ritual reminder of that form of love we call generosity. May the offering now be generously given as it is gratefully received.
Pastures
Thank you so much for your generosity in all the ways that you share your gifts. This morning, we do what humans have always done. We gather in times of worry and anxiety and in times of celebration and joy. We come into our community bringing all that is in our lives, on our hearts and in our minds. Let's open our hearts to the complexity of life as we place stones in the water of community. You will hear a drumbeat. Allow its resonance to enter your body. It is the heartbeat of life, the heartbeat of community. So right now, just take a deep breath together, in and out. Feel the air as it enters and leaves your body. Feel the earth beneath us. And feel the warmth of connection. This past week, we recognized Transgender Day of Remembrance, an annual observance that honors the memory of those who have died because of anti-trans violence. We honor the fight for human rights, including the right to exist for all of our trans siblings. May we continue this fight for justice. We send our love and care to the family of former UUSC member Lou Brighton, who died this week at the age of 94. Lou was an active member of this congregation beginning in the 1970s. She is remembered by her friends at Panorama and by longtime members of this community. May Lou's spirit be at peace, and may peace come to those who mourn her passing. And now let's open our circle wide. For those on Zoom, I invite you to share from your heart by entering in the chat. Those in the sanctuary can see your sharing, and it is shared with the pastoral care team and me. And for those on site today, I invite you to come forward if there's something you'd like to bring into this community. You may place a stone in the water as you hold your sharing in your heart. So right now, let's hear the heartbeat of our community as we open our hearts in love and care for all those who share. We'll place a stone in the water for all that has been shared by those online, shared from the heart. And one more stone placed in the water for all that we hold in our hearts and remains unspoken this day. I invite you to be in whatever way is comfortable for you for prayer and meditation. I will offer a spoken meditation and then we'll hold silence together. So settle in wherever you are. Relax your body as you breathe. Feel the grounding of Mother Earth beneath us. And notice your breath. I invite you to place a hand on your heart or your neck or your wrist so you can feel your heartbeat. And these words are adapted from The Pulse of Life by Jennifer Johnson. These are anxious days. We are bombarded from all sides with new and unprecedented developments, grave threats to our national values and institutions on one hand, and countless calls to action on the other. And then the flood of critique and analyses. These are indeed uncertain times. And yet there are some things that we know for certain. We know that our blue boat home continues to rotate on its axis, continues its familiar sojourn around the sun. The sun sets and rises, and if we remember to pause, we may lose ourselves, but for a moment, in the glorious play of light and color on the horizon. Beneath the crust of the earth, even in winter, the crocuses and the daffodils are waiting. The energy of life and living is pulsing in them and in the blades of grass and the maple buds that will come. And it's pulsing in us, too. The pulse of life calls us to nourish our bodies with good food and movement, to nourish our spirits with art and song, friendship and tenderness and quiet. When we heed the pulse of life, we know what we need to do. To rise in the morning and rest into darkness. To put our hands, hearts, and minds to work. To meet those in our midst with compassion. To join with the vulnerable and speak truth to power. To play with our youngest and hear the wisdom of our elders. To grieve the dying and remember the dead. To be of use and sometimes to be still. The pulse of life is beating in each and every one of us. Amidst the clamor of these times, let us heed its sure and steady rhythm. Let's be in silence together.
Our reading this morning is We Who Dwell on the Margins by Reverend Wendy Bartell. We who dwell on the margins know about division, arbitrary and intentional, like land, like class, like culture. We make ourselves sharp borders around pieces of ourselves, and we blur the edges by being who we are, by expanding the circle. Beyond binaries, we multiply possibilities, languages, customs, practices, rituals, and ceremonies. But not one narrative, but stories shared. Separation is illusion. Love transgresses borders between you and me, us, them, between secular and sacred. We need to trust to strengthen our connection. We must dare to cross over from my world to yours, from your world to mine, until we begin to weave a tapestry of faith and wonder aloud, whose are we? What is a nation? Who can own the earth?
If I told you that I went to the South Pacific, what images might come to mind? If you are perhaps like me or a little bit older, a little bit younger, you might have grown up in the 1970s with the Brady Bunch and the episode of them traveling to Hawaii. You might have very specific images of palm trees, resorts, beaches, an adventurous landscape. You might not necessarily think of things like poverty, malnutrition, and subsistence living. I traveled to the South Pacific as co-chair of the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, for short we call it the UUSC, as the UUSC's co-chair of its Board of Trustees. Now let me here offer a word about the UUSC in case you are unfamiliar with it or are newer to it. The UUSC was founded as a human rights response to the atrocities of World War II. Today, the UUSC works with more than 60 grassroots partners in 20 countries around the world. The UUSC partners with communities that are often left behind by larger non-governmental organizations, working with the most vulnerable and marginalized communities. The collaboration and the work with these communities around the world is partner-centered and partner-led. This means that the UUSC trusts that those who are most affected by the issues where they live also hold the solutions, the response to how things can be made better. For over 50 years, this particular year, we Unitarian Universalists have partnered with the UUSC through its Guest at Your Table program. Guest at Your Table has directly connected us Unitarian Universalists and our congregations with the work of the UUSC, helping Unitarian Universalism bring alive its values in the world. We honor that 50th anniversary this year in particular. Having traveled to the South Pacific then as co-chair of the UUSC's Board of Trustees, I want to give you a little bit of an idea both of the physical landscape and the culture that I encountered in the South Pacific. I was traveling to the island nation of Kiribati. Now, if you look it up on a map or elsewhere, it's spelled Kiribati, but in their own language, that spelling is pronounced Kiribati. And as I was in an airplane taking me to Tarawa, the capital of Kiribati, looking from the window of that airplane, you see nothing but an expanse of the Pacific Ocean to begin with. Never-ending ocean wherever you look. And then suddenly you see little sandbars in the ocean. And the little itty-bitty sandbars give way to like a long, thin strip of a sandbar, which the plane begins to fly alongside as it's descending and descending and descending, parallel and over the water. Now you begin to wonder, as a passenger for the first time traveling to this location, where is the plane going to land? The sandbar is so thin, it's not really clear that there's even room for a runway. And right at the very last second, when it looks like the plane could very well just land on the water itself, the sandbar expands out, becomes wide enough to accommodate a very small airport and a small runway, which is where we landed. This airport was so small that it basically has one gate and one tiny little carousel for those who are arriving. On arrival, now I want to give you a sense of the culture of the Kiribati people. This is not really a tourist setting. Kiribati doesn't have a really extensive tourist infrastructure, or it's not a tourist destination. And so people from outside the culture, such as myself, when we arrive and show up, we're usually there for some specific reason, and you're absolutely an honored guest. And being an honored guest has a very elaborate cultural treatment associated with it. I was there to meet one of the UUSC's partners, several of the partners, but one of them is called Te Toa Matoa. This partner of the USC in Kiribati specifically works with those with mental and physical disabilities. And working with those individuals with mental, developmental, and physical disabilities, marginalized community in Kiribati, I had the chance over several days to meet different groups within that community, and every single time there was a welcoming ceremony. And these welcoming ceremonies are pretty elaborate, and they're intended to really honor the person that has made the effort to be with their community. These were often 2-hour ceremonies with a program and with food, and including a crowning of flowers and a wreath on your head. Always accompanied by dancing and music and dancing that through its hand gestures and movements would convey the stories and the cultural messages of the Kiribati people. There was always a sense of inclusivity, that you are not just there to witness these things that are happening, but to partake of them because you're now one of the people as well. And so in each one of these welcoming ceremonies, I was always invited to dance alongside the people. If you're here, you are absolutely one of us, was the implicit messaging. And as an honored guest, somebody who's not routinely with their communities, you were always, wherever you went, you were always invited to speak and share a few words about who you are, why you're there, what your own life story is about. Through these various and elaborate welcoming ceremonies, I began meeting the people of Kiribati, and as I did, I began to get a flavor of their culture and some of their spirit. One of the things that I definitely had a sense of and was struck by was their joy, their innate sense of joy. This is a people who live very modest lives, and yet, while they don't have the material wealth of other places on planet Earth, they really had an emphasis and brought alive the sense of joy that we can experience in the human spirit, a joy for life and our joy of connection to other human beings. I also grew to appreciate that they had a really profound sense of humor, one that was very self-deprecating and one that I was invited into over and over again alongside them. If you were to somehow make a mistake, fall flat on your face, get something wrong, they thought it was fantastic. Folks would rollick and laugh at your own silliness alongside you, not making fun of you, but alongside you. Look at the silliness of life and the things that we get wrong. I wanted to share with you an anecdote that brings alive some of this sense of joy and the sense of humor. I happened to be with the people of Kiribati during their Easter weekend. And on Easter Sunday itself, I'll tell you, if you're in a Unitarian Universalist congregation and you think our Easter services might be a tad long on occasion, it had to have been 6 to 9 hours worth of celebrating Easter. It began in the morning and continued until 6 o'clock in the evening. I joined in for just the last 3 hours of the Easter celebration, and that was quite full, even that in and of itself. And arriving as I did, I found my traveling partners already there, and we were seated in a celebration that included 400, maybe 500 people brought straight to the center of the event, seated right in the middle of the whole thing as a guest of honor. It was both surprising and also not surprising, given what I've shared about the culture and the spirit of these people. As the honored guest, of course, I've already shared, you're always included in everything. You're not a bystander just watching. So at one point, the celebrants, those honoring Easter, invite us up, the guests from out of the country, to dance, and there were 3 of us. Now, this is also where the humor kicks in, I discovered. We were honored to dance, but there was a bit of a gag going on with this, a bit of an inside joke that everyone else already knew about, and we were kind of included in on, but we had to discover the gag on our own. And it was basically, how's the foreigner, or foreigner, in this case foreigners, how are they going to do with the physicality and the sensuality of South Pacific Island dance? Let's see how much we can embarrass them. And so we're invited into this dance as part of the gag, the living gag that is unfolding. Now, I'll tell you something. While the expectation was that the outside guests are going to blush and feel a little red-faced at the physicality and sensuality, I'm a gay man. I have spent my entire adult life dancing provocatively with straight women, and it doesn't really mean that much. In addition, I'm not about to lose a dance-off. That's simply not happening. So I torso wiggle, and I jiggle, and I booty bounce as much as my dance partner is doing all of the same. Well, they take notice. This is not how this is supposed to unfold. So the more experienced dancers, you could say the aunties in the gathered crowd, they begin to tag out my dance partner because she wasn't doing her job well enough, clearly not getting me to blush or feel embarrassed. The aunties start taking the turns. And one of them is dancing with me and hip checks me. I just hip check her right back. Another one twirls me around, gets me kind of my legs spread out, and as soon as my legs are spread, she begins to slide in between my legs, her full body. I simply just hop over her. On and on this went for a while. It was quite fun, and I think we arrived at a détente that while they weren't able to embarrass me, we had a tremendously good time. I discovered at the end of the event, by the time all of the Easter celebrations were over at 6 o'clock that evening, I had gained somewhat of a following unintentionally. The young kids were all gathered round to stare at me and giggle at me because to them I was some kind of celebrity or superhero. Their elders had not been able to embarrass me. But this is just to bring alive a little bit of the sense of joy and the sense of humor. See, there wasn't any making fun of me. I was right in the middle of the joke and part of it, having fun alongside them. I loved this sense of inclusivity, the sense of spontaneity, and the sense of joy. It's something we could all, in our Western culture, use more of. I also came to understand during that visit some of the deeper challenges of the Kiribati people. This is, like I said, not a wealthy nation. And as can often be the case in such places, in such countries, nutrition and what food is affordable were significant issues. I did see some children who looked like they might be malnourished. I saw on a visit to the grocery store that the food that was cheap and easily available was highly processed and unhealthy. I saw that outside of the very, very small capital town, really village, of Tarawa, people were living a subsistence lifestyle. They were living in thatch huts that they themselves built, collecting leaves and the other material that was needed. They were existing along doing subsistence fishing. engaging in fishing for food for themselves and other fish to sell to earn a meager living. I learned that the per capita annual income in Kiribati is half that of Bangladesh. And I'll tell you, Bangladesh, nobody thinks Bangladesh is a wealthy country. The people of Kiribati, on average, are living with half the income that a Bangladeshi citizen has. This is a very, very modest people and a very modest country and lifestyle. Anything more complicated, telephones, computers, cars, all of these things were manufactured elsewhere and had to be imported into the country, typically at very, very high prices. Alongside this basic kind of framework of day-to-day life, the people of Kiribati living on these very, very thin sandbars that I've described for you, they're dealing with coastal erosion already, active coastal erosion on these islands that are forecast to be completely gone within 20 to 30 years. This deserves our pause for just a moment. The populations that are causing climate change, we're one of them in the United States, by the way, if you're in the United States, have no financial interest or even general public awareness that our energy consumption patterns mean, among other things, that hundreds of thousands of people will lose the lands that they have been living on for millennia. The people of Kiribati have lived on these thin little sandbars on their islands for over 1,000 years, much longer, obviously, than the United States as a nation has even existed. This deserves our reflection. The United States, the largest per capita user of energy on planet Earth. Us, if you're here in the United States, our nation, the largest per capita user of energy on planet Earth, and at meetings such as the COP meetings to deal with climate change, to come up with targets, our United States representatives routinely say that there's nothing the United States can do unless China, India, Brazil, all these other countries first agree to significant emission cuts. Never mind that we are the largest per capita users of energy on planet Earth. Our excuse is that we're waiting for other nations on the planet to do something before we will do anything at all. And so we continue. We go on, turning the light switches on, fueling our cars, flying in planes, watching our streaming TV shows. And don't get me wrong, I do all these same things that I've just said. This is about cultural lifestyle, our entire culture. We do these things. And those actions are part of the very pattern. They're a part of a chain of events that will mean that the people of Kiribati will be climate refugees potentially within my lifetime, very likely within my lifetime. We need to really pause and be present to this, that our consumption and our lifestyles have a direct and deleterious impact on other people's ability to simply have a life at all. What are we at the UUSC doing about this? Among other things, we're working with the most vulnerable people in Kiribati, not only Kiribati, but in Kiribati. There, we're working with folks with disabilities, and I saw firsthand how in a nation that does not have the resources, the financial resources to truly care for every citizen in the way that it might want to, our direct financial support was allowing people with disabilities to have a meaningful life. And these folks were doing more than just having a meaningful life. They were actively contributing to things such as the preservation of the Kiribati culture. We, at the UUSC, through work like this, we were helping make sure that no one gets left behind today, so that no one gets left behind tomorrow as things may get worse. In addition to working with vulnerable populations such as those with disabilities. I saw in Kiribati that we're working towards the empowerment of women, that we're working to support gay, lesbian, and trans peoples in a culture that has not had much of a history of how it might support and deal with its own gay, lesbian, and trans population. We're empowering these populations and these people today so that they're not forgotten tomorrow when crisis may hit. Through these various groups, we're supporting the work of essential cultural preservation. And what that looks in the South Pacific on another island called Tuvalu, the UUSC is supporting the work that's happening there of digitizing the nation. Tuvalu is becoming the first on planet Earth digitized nation so that if it should happen, and it's likely it might, that the island itself disappears, that the people will not lose their culture, their traditions, their stories, their music, even their landscape is being digitally archived. All of this essential work, the work of memory, is what informs not just an individual, but a collective sense of identity. It informs culture. So this work is critical for the future of these people in the South Pacific that may not have their islands forever. What can you do as an ordinary Unitarian Universalist, as perhaps a friend or supporter of the UUSC, as we honor the 50th year celebration anniversary of Guest at Your Table? We hope that your community will again this year participate in Guest at Your Table. And we hope beyond Guest at Your Table that the congregants and members in your congregation will consider the ways in which you can support the UUSC more broadly, month to month, day to day. If you're not already a member of the UUSC, a donation in any amount makes you a member, and we encourage you to join us in this important human rights work that our denomination, our faith, is actively engaged in. Trust that our conviction as Unitarian Universalists matters. Trust that your commitment to bring alive our Unitarian Universalist values in your local community parallels and dovetails with our similar work at the global level that is led by the UUSC. Trust that the commitment to support vulnerable populations around the planet brings alive our UU commitment to inclusivity, accessibility, and the inherent worth and dignity of each human being. It's through this trust and this knowing that we are all connected one to one another, one to each other through this work, that the UUSC creates an impact far greater than what any one of us could do alone. May we continue to be the people that our world needs.
Let's join together in singing a closing song, hymn number 317, We Are Not Our Own. I invite you to rise in body and our spirit. Let's sing together.
Seeds of
We extinguish our chalice with these words adapted from Jennifer Grayson. We come together each week bound not by a creed or a mutual desire to please one God or many gods, yet we are drawn together by a belief that how we are in the world, who we are together, matters. We extinguish this chalice together in the knowledge that love, not fear, can change the world. May you go with joy, go with commitment, go with love.
You sang beautifully. Thank you for the wonderful solo. Great. Yeah. You sang beautifully today. Thank you.